Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I do appreciate you stopping by, and if you're a current subscriber and you're returning, especially to watch my Star Wars reviews, I do appreciate it. Today is May 4th, so may the 4th be with you. Today is also the 4th installment of my reviews for the Star Wars Skywalker saga, so that's episodes 1 through 9. Obviously, today being the 4th, we are reviewing the 4th Star Wars film, which is Star Wars A New Hope. It's also called Star Wars because it was actually the first film that was made of the series. This movie was made back in the 70s. When it originally came out, it was just called Star Wars. So, being a bit of a purist, I like to call it Star Wars. I don't like calling it A New Hope. So, during this review, if I just call it Star Wars, obviously, you'll just know what I'm talking about. This is also a Steelbook film review, so let's take a quick look. This is the cover. It's alright. I'm not a huge fan. It's a little dark. Again, the Star Wars title is embossed. This is the back cover, which I absolutely love. I love how the artwork is that like old school, like 50s through 70s science fiction art style, with the damsel in distress, but who's also like super hot, and then the main hero whose shirt is ripping open and you can see their muscles. Like, I just love that style of artwork. Actually, there's a similar style right back here on Forbidden Planet. And then this is the inside of it. You have Luke there. This is not the original Blu-ray disc that came with this film. Star Wars throughout the years has had so many minor changes and then some big changes to it when Lucasfilm went back through and edited scenes to put in different special effects and whatnot. Because this film's such an iconic piece of cinematic history, I really don't like that they went back in the 80s and 90s and for the Blu-ray releases and changed and tweaked things, because to me it ruins that originality of that time period and how great the special effects for that time period were. There is the Blu-ray of this film that is the original cut of the film. It's not officially licensed by Disney or Lucasfilm or 20th Century Fox. It was done by like a group of fans. I got all 3 of the original trilogy on Blu-ray in the original form. You can buy them on like eBay or Facebook Marketplace. They usually run around 22 to 30 bucks for the trilogy. So I bought them, and those are pretty much the only versions I will watch. That being said, let's get into the review. Just like my other reviews, I'm not really going to go over the plot that much. I'm just going to talk about the things I like and dislike, and everything's going to be kind of disjointed because. So right off the bat, let's talk about the special effects for this movie. They're so well done and so ahead of their time. I can totally understand why when this movie came out, it was such a phenomenon, or it was such a big deal, okay? And I understand that, especially if you go back and watch science fiction films that were made around the same time as Star Wars. The special effects are not the greatest. I mean, I do appreciate that films of that day used like live models and stuff and didn't really try and like animate that much. But still, Star Wars really just upped the production quality and the techniques for filming science fiction and space and spaceships and all that stuff. I understand why it was such a big deal, and I think it's very important as part of cinema to, like I said, keep the original cut of this movie, because it's like an event that's stamped in time, showing beginning of special effects being used. And without Lucasfilm, we would not be where we are today as far as special effects, practical effects, and CGI. The story in this movie is actually pretty good. It's not super exciting. It's pretty simple. It moves along pretty well. Although, even though the pacing is okay, it still feels a little, I guess the way I would put it is it's kind of like simply slow, if that makes any sense. Harrison Ford is a great choice to play Han Solo in this film. The character of Han Solo really adds some humor and levity to this movie, but at the same time, also he's very serious. And as much as he's sarcastic and snarky, you just can't help but really like him. So I think he's a great character, and I love Harrison Ford's portrayal of him. It's great to see a young Harrison Ford. I probably sound like I'm gushing over him, but that's probably also, in fact, to the point. No, that's not a proper sentence. But that's also just because I'm a huge fan of his, and he's played some of my most favorite characters in film. Then you have Luke Skywalker, played by Mark Hamill, and I used to think the acting wasn't that good, but again, it's one of those things where it's kind of the script and the story. He's really not a bad actor, it's just he doesn't have a lot to do in this movie, like, as far as acting range goes. A lot of it's more like him complaining and then questioning things. Like, you never really see much character growth, and because of that, you don't get to see him in a different, vast range of acting skills. Carrie Fisher plays Princess Leia, or Leia. They pronounce it both ways in this movie. I think she's gorgeous. I've had a crush on her character since even before I saw these movies. I saw pictures and I thought she was just beautiful. Some of her sarcastic remarks in the script, it feels kind of forced, and I'm not sure if that's just the writing or if it's the directing or if it's the acting. I feel like with Han Solo they did a much better job, and I know Harrison Ford is a way better actor than Carrie Fisher was. It might be because of the acting ability and not the director. I really don't know. It's not like super bad, but it is something that does bother me a little bit. John Williams makes the iconic score for this film. He really set the way to making some of the most iconic themes in cinematic history. I don't use that phrase or that term lightly. Everyone knows the Star Wars theme. Everyone knows the Jaws theme, even if they haven't seen the film. Everyone knows the theme from Indiana Jones. Most people know the theme from E.T., the theme from Schindler's List, the theme from The Patriot, and countless other films. Harry Potter. So he's a very, very gifted artist. Rewatching the original movie and getting to experience that type of music and what it meant during that time period, and just be kind of like a part of history, even though this is 50-ish years later. That's part of the reason why I like this movie a good deal, even though I don't think it's the best film in the franchise. It's because it's so just iconic and important, and being someone who loves film and loves film soundtrack and composing and special effects and everything, this movie is just such an important piece of history. It's therefore important to me, even if it's not the greatest thing. That being said, I'm not saying it's terrible, but as an overall thing, I've always stated that I think, as much as I love Star Wars, I think it's highly overhyped and overrated. But, I mean, I do enjoy it. I'm not complaining at all. But I'm one of the fans that does admit that it is overhyped and overrated. So, here's one of the problems I've always had with this movie. I don't find Darth Vader very menacing, like, at all. I know he's supposed to be bad. He has the iconic theme music when he enters a room or is going to enter a room. Like, you can hear him a mile away. But he never really gave me that feeling of like, oh crap, like, this guy is terrifying, because he's not to me. And maybe at the time this film was made, it was different because we hadn't had fantastic villains like we do now, you know, with Terminator, the xenomorphs from Alien and Aliens, Thanos, Loki, Red Skull. I mean, we didn't have those at that time period, so maybe at that time Darth Vader was terrifying on screen, but just for me, I just never really felt that. Also, for the first time in the 70s, you got to see a lightsaber and hear it. The lightsaber ignition and hum sound is probably one of the most well-known sound effects ever. Even if you've never seen the films, you know what it sounds like. I can just imagine what it was like at that time period, seeing the concept of a lightsaber and hearing it. That must have just blown people's minds. Lightsabers, to be honest, have always been my favorite part of Star Wars. I've talked about my love of lightsabers in my past few reviews, so I'm not really going to get into it here, but I think it's one of the coolest science fiction weapons ever. I love Rick Deckard's blaster from Blade Runner. That's one of my favorite weapons, and so that's up there with the lightsaber, and they're so cool, and I played hours and hours in my Nana's and Papa's basement with my cousin playing lightsabers, and it just never got tiring, never got old, and it was such a fond memory from my childhood. So yeah, lightsabers are awesome. I think there's an ant or a tiny spider crawling on my floor. I can't tell. I got like 3 hours of sleep last night, and when I don't get good sleep, my eyes have trouble focusing on things, even with my glasses, so I can't tell. And I'm in too much pain to get up and step on it, so whatever kind of insect it is, it's his lucky day. What else about this movie? The introduction of R2-D2 and C-3PO, I think, is very interesting. Up until that time in most science fiction, when you had robots or droids, they kind of looked like this. I mean, this was kind of the standard type of robots. So to have C-3PO be a lot more humanoid looking and R2-D2 to look like a trash can, and them to play off each other, and they have their own like characteristics and personalities. Again, that was also ahead of its time for that day. As annoying as C-3PO is, he does add some comedic relief. I remember watching this with my Nana, which is weird because she never really liked science fiction that much. So I don't know why she was watching it with us, but I remember C-3PO and R2-D2 were her favorite parts. She thought they were like super funny. One other thing I would change with this film is that Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, when they face off with each other, maybe for the day the lightsaber duel was like blowing people's minds, but in comparison to now, it's seriously is like two old people poking each other with light sticks. You never feel any emotionally driven action during this whole scene with them fighting. You never really feel threatened. It feels kind of weird. There's mostly a lack of soundtrack during that scene, so it's even like less intense and impactful than it could be or even should be. It's also pretty short for the time. Like, I get that it was, cool and a big deal, but the fact that the last time we saw Obi-Wan and Anakin facing off with each other was the film right before this, set like 20-ish years before, and the fact that it contains the greatest and longest lightsaber battle of all time in the Star Wars franchise, and it's just so freaking epic. And then 20 years later, these Jedi Masters and Sith Lords are like poking at each other with sticks. It just feels really out of place. And again, that's kind of that problem with the fact that there's such a time gap between when they made these films and everything. So I understand it, but it is something that it just bothers me every time I watch it. This is a fun movie to watch with your kids or with younger kids because there's not really anything super violent or worrisome content-wise in this film. Alright, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for this movie. What do you think of this movie? What do you think of this review? Do you agree or disagree with any of my points? Leave a comment below. I would be very interested in reading your thoughts. If you'd like this video and subscribe, I would really much appreciate it. Alright, thanks for watching. May the 4th be with you, and may the Force be with you. Stay tuned for my next review, which comes out tomorrow, May 5th, which is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. My name is Aaron, and goodbye.